What's up, everybody? This is the Not Network podcast. Your host today is Jimmy. It's Matthew, and we're here to talk to a really cool dude, a real cool artist. He's a guy that goes by the name of Nur-D. His name's Matt Allen. Let's hear what he has to say.
So I first found this artist about a year and a half ago, shuffling through Apple Music's curated new music playlist. My ears were intrigued by this hip-hop beat with lyrics about D&D and Super Mario. The now iconic catchphrase, "I don't have a catchphrase yet," made me smile, and from then on, I was along for the ride. He's a musician, singer-songwriter, he's a rapper, a performer, he's an activist, and he's also a black kid from a white town. Please welcome Matt Allen, aka Nur-D.
Welcome.
Woo. Hey,
Snaps
hey, thanks for having me.
Yes,
We are here.
we are here, and thanks for being here.
Mhm.
You're in Minnesota still, right?
Yes, I am. Twin
Nice.
Cities in the building.
Twin Cities. Yeah,
Nice.
we're coming to you from Texas. I don't know if you knew that. So we're straight down south.
Ooh.
Yeehaw.
Straight down.
I've been to Texas one time
really
in my life. It was for a cousin's wedding, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself fully. The one thing that threw me off, which I never thought I saw before, maybe it was this weird town that we drove through, there was a gas station for horses.
What?
Please explain.
Is that normal for y'all?
We
It
never
was
heard
like
of this.
it was a gas station, but in all the spots there were like hay for horses to eat.
What location?
Yeah, where were you?
Where were you? Do you know what? East,
I
south?
have no idea. We were just driving around. My fiance, it was actually my fiance's cousin, and she was doing the driving and I was doing the watching. And I saw it and I'll never forget that. And I was like, what is this? And then so in my head, I assumed that everybody in Texas just has a horse.
Of course.
Yeah.
But now I'm fine. But now I'm finding that is wrong. As you guys are like,
We're surprised
you
by
guys
this.
are saying this. I'm surprised by this. So now maybe I just stumbled across some kind of mystery town.
Yeah, I don't know where in Texas that was. I mean, it sounds
That's
like
amazing.
It sounds like you're describing like just stables, but you said like there were gas pumps and also hay.
It was designed as if they were like a gas station would be designed
How
if the
creative.
gas pumps instead were hay and not gas pumps.
Wow.
And there was
Nice.
like a place you could walk in and get like soda and like candy and stuff. And I was just like, what is this place?
I believe that. There's I know places like out west that predominantly use horses.
Yeah, there
But-
are whole communities that do for sure.
Yeah.
So, there
I
you
believe
go.
that.
I've learned I've been rearranged in my brain about how Texas is. Now I just think it's just one town. Before I was like, wow, Texas is cool. Like everyone's just like riding horses and stuff.
Yeah, shooting
That's
each other
dope.
with 6-shooters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's dope. I'm sad that has to die in my
know.
brain, but
I know. Well, we'll keep it alive. You know, they're actually everywhere. We were lying to you. They're everywhere.
thank you.
We live in a barn.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is the green
I
screen right
needed
here.
Yeah.
I needed this fantasy, so
Good.
I appreciate saying
Good.
that.
So, Matt, should I call you Mr. Allen?
Ooh, yeah.
Should I call you?
Mr. Matt Allen?
You can call me whatever you want. I feel like you ever watch the Avengers? You watch the new
Oh, yeah.
Avengers
Oh
movies
Yeah.
where
Big fan.
Peter Parker when they're like, "Oh, Doctor Strange," and he's like, "Oh, we're using our made up names."
Yeah.
That's how I feel anytime someone calls me Nur-D, like
Yeah.
outside of like being on stage.
Yeah.
So you can call me Matt if you want.
Okay.
That's
Nice.
fine.
Does that feel like foreign to you? Do you identify with like when someone says nerdy, you're like, hey, that's me? Or is it just kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of odd?
I'll do either or.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on how they know me or where they know me from.
Sure.
I know a lot of people who only know me from music, so they call me Nur-D, and I only call them their stage names just because we haven't really gotten to that point yet where we know each other outside of that. Most of my friends just call me Matt, and they'll call me Nur-D if they're trying to make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, well, Nur-D doesn't want to go to Applebee's, so
He's
we'll
too
go to
bougie
some
for
other
Applebee's.
place." He's too big now for the 2
Yeah.
for $20. Ooh. So that's me.
So, Matt, I'm going to call you Matt because I think
Yeah,
it's a
please
great
do.
name.
Please do. I love it. I'm
Good.
a big fan of it.
Nice.
So you were born in Bronx,
Yeah, Bronx, New York.
And
Correct.
you moved to Minnesota as a little lad.
Yes, so a wee lad.
When did Matt Allen turn to Nur-D? Where did that transition kind of start? You did like theater and stuff, right?
Tell us the origin story.
Where's Nur-D's origin story?
Well, I feel like it's never just one place. You know, when you talk about your musical identity, you really kind of pull from all sorts of different places. So like growing up, I was different just off the bat from most of the people that I live next to. I mean, Rosemont, Minnesota is a pretty homogenous location. And so I was called, but I liked certain things that, again, at the time weren't super mainstream. Like now, the idea of loving comic books and comic book stuff was like pretty obvious. But like when where I was growing up, not necessarily when, but where I was growing up in the time, it wasn't. And so a lot of people made fun of me about the stuff I liked. They made fun of me for how I talked. They made fun of me with how I dressed. And I was like, oh, you're a nerd. Ah, ha, ha. And so for a while, that has been like, it was like a moniker that people had called me. And then in high school, I started hanging out with my brother and his friends. And after school, they would like rap. Like after school, they're like, "Oh, we're rap." Like they would rap, and then and they're very good compared to me. Even a lot of these guys are really great. But like, I was like, "Oh, I'll come with." And so for fun, I started calling myself Nur-D because I was like, I need a cool rap name because you want a cool rap name. And I was like, Nur-D, like that's hilarious. And originally, fun fact, it was Ner-D.
I knew this because I saw your music video for something from your first mixtape that you wrote all of it out on a piece of paper, and it was Ner.
Yes,
so I picked up
for
on
not cool. For not cool. Yeah, originally my name was Ner-D, and I changed it after people kept telling me they kept pulling up Pharrell's band.
What?
Like N.E.R.D.
Yeah.
Like they kept pulling up Pharrell's band every time they tried to search me, and I was like, "Well, I don't want that to happen. I want them to be able to find me."
No
so then I
clout.
switched to I switched to the. So me and Pharrell are having a feud. He doesn't know that this is, but we switched it to Nur-D because it says it's the same. Like it's you say it the same. It's just different. And I was the only one who was like that. So it worked out really well. But that's when I started using the moniker. But I started in rock and roll actually.
Okay.
So I didn't actually do hip hop right away. I was in rock and roll for about like 7 years.
Whoa.
I played piano, I sang, and I loved it. I love rock and roll. I think a lot of it was because I was like, people just said, "Hey, you're black, you should rap," and I was like, "No, don't tell me what to do."
Hey.
Yeah, nice.
Like, yeah, I can, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna do rock and roll, and I did for a while, and then after the band came to a halt, I said to myself, well, I can try this rap thing out. I mean, I like doing it. Like, I do enjoy doing it. It's fun for me. And it just kind of clicked. Everything fell into place. I found my voice, and the rest is history. Like, I've been Nur-D ever since.
Yeah. And so that was, you said you started, like, in the hip-hop kind of scene 2018, right? Like early-ish 2018?
Yep, early-ish 2018, around February, because I started at this open mic contest around my way called Shut Up and Rap, put on by Go 95.3 FM.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. They just recently were a victim of the Rona, so they're actually no longer a thing.
Oh, no.
But
that's a shame.
They're amazing. I promise I'll never forget that radio station. So if I ever win a Grammy, I'll shout it out from the stage.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That's my thought process.
Okay, good.
There you go.
And you
Honor.
won that like 4 times.
Yep, 4 times in a row. They had to retire me. They said I couldn't do it anymore.
Hey, this guy's done.
And
He's done.
I was like, okay. And so then I was able to perform at our biggest hip hop festival called Soundset.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to perform with like Tyler, who was on my year? Tyler the Creator, the Wu-Tang Clan, Jaden Smith, just a bunch of Erykah Badu was there.
Oh shit!
A bunch of people.
Yeah. So this was
So it was really it was a big deal, and it was hot. I remember that day was very, very very hot. People were passing out all over the place. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a wild day, but it was a very awesome day.
Yeah, something that I noticed about
Migos, they were also there.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a big one. And so this was when? 2018 still?
This was 2018, yeah, 2018 Sunset. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Migos were
That was still my first year. I hadn't even written my whole project yet, my first project.
Wow.
I remember they called and said, "Hey, we want you to do Soundset." And I remember saying, "Cool, I'll do it." Didn't even like say anything. I was like, "Of course I'll do it." And then I said, "Well, now I have to write 5 songs because I only have 2."
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's
That's what
important.
happened.
It's important to just like when you're given a big opportunity like that, whether you think you're ready for it or not, just be like, "Yep, I'll do it." And then you ended up.
yep, let's do it.
Here you are now.
What was that timeline of like saying yes and then being like, I need to write some more songs?
I think I had like 2 months.
Nice.
Wow.
I think I had like 2 months. Like, yeah, they said, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah." I was in the stairwell at my job at the time. And they called me, and I was like, "Why is this DJ calling me? This is a big deal." And so I was like, "I have to go to the bathroom." And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And they were like, "Hey, we want you to do Soundset." And I was like, "What? Of course. Yeah, of course I'll do it." Sweet.
Gosh.
And they said, "Sophia Aris is going to DJ for you." If you don't know, Sophia Aris is Lizzo's DJ. And I was
wow.
like, okay.
Wild. What?
And then I was like, and I wrote a bunch of songs, and half of those songs became the ones on mixtape 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I was just off to the races.
Wow. That's crazy.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, something that I noticed about some of your performances, and this was before I knew that you were doing rock and roll for several years. I honestly did not know that throughout my research somehow.
Mhm.
But like seeing some of your performances and seeing pictures of you, you are just like dripping in sweat. You're jumping around everywhere. I'm like, this looks like quite the performance. And it looks like a rock performance.
Looks like fun.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to be amped up.
I mean, my favorite people I love 80s hair metal. People don't know that about me, but I love 80s hair metal. I love glam rock. I love Sister Christian by Night Ranger is my favorite song. Actually,
Really?
people don't know that
Of all
about me,
time?
but that's my favorite song. Yep.
Wow.
I couldn't tell you why. It's my Motorhead.
Yes.
I love it. I don't know why I love
So
it so
good.
much. So like that kind of like running around the stage, jumping up and down, getting sweaty, throwing your clothes everywhere. Like that's the kind of front person I've always wanted to be, because that's the kind of like you feel every emotion of it. And you look at people like James Brown, who's been doing that this entire time. James Brown, was the godfather of soul, but he really was a frontman. Prince, another frontman, powerful frontman that was just like doing all the things. So I have a lot of influence in that way, and I watch a lot of professional wrestling, and so like the idea of putting on a huge performance is always my first goal.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
So a couple of those guys you said were kind of your influences. Were they have your influences kind of changed, and the people that have inspired you from the beginning up until now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on what I'm trying to make. Like, if I think I'm gonna make like a soulful, like a different type of slower tune or project or something, I'll listen to more people like that. Like I was saying recently, I've been getting into Taylor Bennett. If you know Taylor Bennett,
I've heard
one
the
of
name.
the
I can't
artists,
think of the songs.
just his flow and how he really just like in this low raspy kind of like a tone that just continues and pulls and pulses and pulses. I listen to that a whole lot. You know what I mean? Or if I'm looking for something really big, really like horn heavy, really boombastic, I might listen to someone like Dave Matthews even.
Ooh.
Just to really get his change of tempo. Why I Am by Dave Matthews, if people haven't heard that song before, like hitting it on the different beats every time in the chorus is so interesting. And so like finding ways to switch up your flow. If I want to do something fun and cocky, maybe listen to DaBaby. If I want to tell a story, I'll listen to Andre 3000. Yeah. Andre 3000 is my favorite rapper of all time. I think he's the best.
Really?
The way he craft the narrative throughout the story and change it up, and the internal rhyme schemes and stuff like that. The man is just a masterful creator. So it really depends on what I'm looking to make, where I will pull my influences from, but it'll always be somebody who is like doing something that I want to do.
Gotcha. So it's very specific. Like you have an idea for a song, and you're like, I kind of want this kind of vibe. I'm going to listen to Dave Matthews. I'm going to listen to Andre. Okay.
So you can flip your style, right?
Yeah, I've never wanted to stay too stagnant. There's certain things that I know I do well.
Yeah.
There's certain things I know I do well, and I can always do those things. But I like to be able to be like, oh, well, I'm going to try something different here. I'm going to try a different type of beat that I don't normally do, or a different type of flow that I haven't tried before. And so I'm still young enough in my career. I've only been doing this 3 years that crazy. I've been able to just like really push for new things every time.
What do you find the most what's the best benefit out of that kind of like experimentation that you see so far? You don't get
bored. You don't get bored with yourself. You don't find yourself in a box and stuck in any one place. I feel like a lot of times, and this comes with an old view of how the music system works, but in the old view of how the music system works, you have to stay in this one lane. You can only be in this one type of genre, this one type of music, this one type of sound. And you want people to be able to recognize you. But I truly believe, and this is just my personal opinion, is that the music consumer now, their shuffle on their Spotify, their iTunes, their Tidal is different. It'll have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different genres. And it'll go from genre to genre, from song to song, to genre to genre. And they won't even notice. They won't think, because they're not thinking, oh, I'm going to listen to only hip hop today. Right. They're going to listen to the song they like. And if it happens to be hip hop, great. If it's not, then it won't be. So you don't have to put yourself in that same box. So for me, I go like, oh, if I want to do a little more sing-songy stuff, I'll do a little bit more sing-songy stuff. If I want to do just more straight bars and not have a crazy hook, then I won't have to do that. You could see that on Songs About Stuff, one of my earlier stuff. It's just, I just did what I felt like doing, and the songs will reflect however I was feeling at the time.
Yeah, and you can totally notice that, and I really like that album quite a lot. And that's actually the song that I don't want to say like I discovered you, like that's important to you or anything, but like the first time that I heard you was 20 Cha, and then that was the first song that got recommended to me in like my new music playlist. I'd never heard of you before or anything like that, but it was just kind of random, and I heard it and I was like, that's different. It's like unique. And then it definitely caught my attention. So I think it's important. And what you said about, I don't want to misquote you. You said like about how, people's playlists, you put it on shuffle and it's just like this genre, this artist, like almost random and haphazard.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that like the need for genre artists is kind of like going away as people are basically only streaming music now instead of just radio? That like,
I think so. I don't want to say like it's 100% going away. I'm just saying that it's not as needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like if for example, like Chance the Rapper is all over the place. Yeah. Like he'll just do a straight up hip hop song, then he'll do like a ballad with Ed Sheeran.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's like, oh, well, like that's wrong. It's just it'll whatever fits the song will fit the song.
Yeah.
You know, I think that as we continue, we'll see acts that are similar but not the same. You know what I mean? Some people love certain genres, but I also think that a lot of that comes to do with pride and a lot less to do with actual music, like desire. Like some people like, I don't listen to country, and they think that's a personality trait. And I'm just
you're calling me out right now.
And I'm just like, okay, like whatever. Like I do. I listen to the country songs I like. I think Chris Stapleton is fantastic. I think he crafts a really good song. One of my favorite songs is "Devil Went Down to Georgia." And I feel like when people don't listen to other types of music, they just give themselves less to be inspired by.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a less interesting person. If you all you ate was spaghetti, I wouldn't trust your culinary taste in anything because all you eat is spaghetti.
That's a great metaphor, dude.
That's spot on metaphor.
So, okay, I had this suspicion about one of your songs.
Give me.
It's probably not a suspicion because it's probably a lot more obvious than I'm lending. But
I'm excited.
You said you are a big fan of Devil Went Down to Georgia. One of your songs is like, I forgot the title of it. What's that song called?
The epilogue.
The epilogue. Yes. I love that song. It's basically like, can you describe it? How you would describe it?
Yeah. So I love The Devil Went Down to Georgia. I remember even as a kid hearing that song, I was always just really interested at the concept of it. It was just a weird storytelling song with a really interesting premise. But I've always wondered, like, well, what happens after that? Like, he beats the devil in the fiddle contest, and then like what? The song just ends.
Yeah.
Like you stop midway through the story. Like there's a lot going on. You found the literal devil, and that's all that happened. You beat him in a fiddle contest, and your life went back to normal. So like, I've always wondered what happens next. So I wrote a song.
That was me.
Oh, that was a weird.
Yeah.
I got a robot letting me know the time every single hour.
Yeah.
Sorry. I get distracted sometimes.
I just heard like it's 5 o'clock. I was like, ooh. All right.
That's just
awesome.
a notification. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Anyway, no, so I wanted to write what happens next. So I wrote the epilogue from like what I would think happens next, and it follows that same character, but now through a first person perspective as opposed to a third person perspective of Johnny going back to tell the town, this fictional town and where he came from, like, hey, I met the devil, I beat him in a fiddle contest, look at this awesome fiddle he gave me. And their response to that, I think that when I wrote it, I was still going to this church up here in Burnsville, and I was starting to do better with my music, but because my music wasn't like praise and worship music, I was getting a lot of flack for it.
Nice.
Like people were telling me that I was not doing the right thing.
Wow.
But I felt always really strange by that because I was like, well, the music's very positive. People seem to be like gaining positivity from it. Their life seems to be feeling better. I've made people's day. I've heard people say like, oh, this got me through the day. How could this be bad? You know what I mean? And so and in my head, I'm thinking to myself, here's Johnny, the guy who plays the fiddle. And he's like, oh yeah, I beat the devil with my fiddling. And they're just like, what? You were talking to the devil? I was like, I feel like you missed the point of what I said, is that I beat him. Like he's gone. It's not, I wasn't like hanging out like we were cool buddies.
Yeah.
Like I beat him. And then just like everyone's reaction to his experience. And so I wrote the epilogue from that. Again, because I listened to Devil Went Down to Georgia, because I took the time to listen to other genres of music, I could create this story because I knew about it, because I was listening to other things than just hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to diversify your playlist even as a musician.
Yes, 100%. Or else you're going to start sounding exactly like. There's a reason why there are so many artists that don't make it, and it's because they sound exactly like an artist that they like that has already made it.
Yeah.
Why would someone want to play you if they could just play the more successful version of exactly what you sound like? If you're rapping about the exact same things the exact same way, like this person's already established, they'll just listen to that person.
Yeah.
It's so ironic you say that, because we have this thing going on with our podcast when we talk to creative people, is that they're always talking about spacing out the subjects, is diversifying, what they know and what they experience and feel. And it can amplify yourself and your perspective by just learning new things. Who knew? Who would know? Who knew that?
Yeah.
So it's ironic you say that.
Yeah. I think go ahead.
No, that was it. I was just saying, yeah, that's what you got to do. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. I wanted to ask this question anyway, but since you already like brought it up, you heard this song, Devil Went Down to Georgia, and then you thought there's like more to this story. So you already had this in your mind, and then you started writing the song. And I think I really appreciate when I hear not just like a good song, but like a good story. When someone is able to tell a story through rhyme, through song, I appreciate poetry for that reason. Just because it's just cool. And you also mentioned Andre 3000. I think he was really good at that, especially in hip hop.
Yes.
Because it seems to me that hip hop and country are kind of married by like one thing, and that's that the objective is to tell a story. And
exactly.
So Andre was really good at that as well. And like Kendrick and Eminem do this all the time. And I think that you were doing it from, by the way, I listened to all of your songs this morning, like in chronological order.
Yay! Yeah.
So just to get.
Okay, pause. Just wait 1 second. We've come to the part of the podcast where we have forgotten to put the batteries in the recorder. So, little pause, little take. In the meantime, let's hear a little word from our sponsors, okay? Thanks for your patience on this, bros and broellas. Back to the podcast.
Yes, I can.
Oh, Matt, I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. These things are weird, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're all still bunking around trying to figure out how to make this all work.
I know. We're figuring it out. The way that I look at it, we talked about this on one of our episodes early on, is whenever a mistake is made, that you can just mark it off the list of any mistake you can ever make, and then you just try to never make it again. Just be happy that it happened now, and be done with it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I forgot. I was in the middle of I was saying.
Okay, you were talking about a story.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Matt. So when you're developing music, and as a person who can confidently say, I'm terrible with words. I hate them so much. I hate communicating through words. As a person like that, how do you find the words to, I guess, articulate this elaborate kind of story, and then not only that, but just mix it with some cool tunes and bars?
Yeah, I think that it comes a lot from reading. If believe it or not, I love comic books. I've loved comic books my whole life, ever since I was real young. And I was reading comic books before I was reading like the stuff they were telling you to read in books, like in school. And one of the things that you can learn through reading comic books is the art of subtle comparison, the art of simultaneous storytelling, the art of, parallel narrative. So when you're reading something like Doom Patrol or X-Men, yeah, you're reading about mutants being hated because they could shoot lasers out of their eyes and set the sun on fire if somehow. But the reality is, what you're reading about is a group of people who are hated for something that they can't control. And as you're reading the story, you'll see the parallels and the similes as it goes through. And the more you read, whether that's comic books or just fiction or any type of work like that, once you learn to read between the lines, you'll learn to write that same way.
Nice.
So when you're listening to Devil Went Down to Georgia, you can hear the literal song about this one moment, but your mind starts to think well, what happens next? What's the community in which this town is this whole thing is based off of? What would he say? And you can build your story from there.
That's awesome. I got another question. What kind of comic books or books do you read? I'm super interested. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Body Keeps the Score. I've been reading this book for 2 months now. I need to get on with my life halfway through. But yeah, I'm super interested in what people learn, because it's like you're like a sponge when you read, it sometimes hits you a little bit differently and kind of impacts you more.
I've been getting really into audiobooks. I've been to audiobooks for a while because I can walk around and read and or read to. I could still like do all the other stuff I had to do the day, use my hands. So I've read all of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books just recently.
Nice.
And I really enjoyed that. I've read a couple of other things like We Are Bob or We Are Many, which is like a weird sci-fi book about a guy getting turned into like a bunch of sentient nanobots. That's actually really funny. But then some of the comic books that I've been reading recently. Ooh, I have it actually on my nightstand right here. It's called The Other History of the DC Universe. I know you can't see it, people, but The Other History of the DC Universe. It is so freaking good. The story is by John Ridley. If you recognize that name, it's because he wrote 12 Years a Slave. And
oh my gosh.
This particular comic is it's all written in prose, so it's not like your standard comic book format, panel 1, panel 2, but it's just like all of the artwork is all over the place, the story's all over the place, and it is the story of the years 1972 through 1995, specifically through the lens of Black Lightning and what it's like to be a black superhero in the world of DC Comics. It's so interesting, some of the stuff that you get to read. I'm a big DC fan. I love the Marvel movies and live action stuff, but as far as comics go, I'm a huge DC fan. Like Heroes in Crisis, I read that entire graphic novel. I love the Doom Patrol. I love Dial H for Hero. That's actually like a weird one. So yeah, you could just find a bunch of comic books that you can enjoy. But my favorite comic book ever, I know I'm talking a lot about comics, I'll do this forever. Up in the Sky, it's a Superman run. There is maybe 7 issues total. It's not a long run, so you can find it anywhere you want to. Superman Up in the Sky, and not to give away the whole thing, but the premise is a little girl gets kidnapped by some sort of alien thing, and Superman has to decide if he's just going to stop whatever he's going to do and go get her, because she's just one girl and the entire world needs Superman, and he has no idea where in space she is, but he just decides to pick up and go look for her. And it's a really beautiful story of right and wrong and like the questions of like power and responsibility. It's a really good book.
Thanks for giving us a little taste.
Yeah.
We'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll have that all linked.
Yes, you gotta check it out.
So who's your favorite? Who's your favorite superhero?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I know. Asking hard questions.
My favorite superhero is the Flash. I've always loved the Flash. I thought the Flash was always my favorite hero. Wally West specifically is my favorite Flash.
I was about to ask that next.
Yeah, Barry Allen's okay. He's all right. I think he's overhyped. People get up on him too much.
Honestly.
But I'm a 90s kid, so I grew up with Wally West being the main Flash. Barry Allen had already died, even though nobody's really dead. Mm-hmm. Barry Allen had already died. So Wally West had taken it too. So he was the Flash that I knew. He was the Flash from the cartoon. He was the Flash in the comic books that I was reading. So he's my favorite Flash. He's canonically faster than Barry, but whatever. Yep. And so he's my favorite. But it's a close. My second favorite, just by a small margin, is Captain Marvel, not Carol Danvers, the original Captain Marvel, now being called Shazam in most media. He's my second favorite.
Okay, well, hold on. Oh, yeah. Now I'm confused.
Well, yeah, you just said two different.
I thought that Shazam was DC, right?
Oh, allow me to explain.
Please do,
my friends. We're
so uneducated.
Back in the day, before anything, where comic books were like 5 cents and it was all kids media, basically, right? DC Comics existed, but there was also another comic book company called Fawcett Comics, right? Fawcett Comics had a superhero called Captain Marvel, and he was a superhero, young Billy Batson, who could turn into Captain Marvel when he said the magic words Shazam, right? Okay. That was just the word he said in order to turn into Captain Marvel, which was his name. And the comic book was called Captain Marvel. However, DC, back in the day, before this would make a whole lot of sense, now you couldn't do that. They sued Fawcett Comics for creating Captain Marvel because they said it's a copy of Superman. Look, he can fly, he's super strong, and he's a superhero. He has a cape. That's just like Superman. And at the time, they were like, yep, that is a copy. You have to stop making Captain Marvel comics because Captain Marvel was more popular than Superman at the time. But DC had just made it first. Like, Captain Marvel was about to put Superman out of business and the entirety of DC Comics out of business. So they sued the comic book company, got Captain Marvel taken off the shelves. And then a few decades later, they bought the rights to the character. However, in that time period, another comic book company had to come out of the woodwork. That company was Marvel. And now they couldn't call the comic book Captain Marvel because there was a Marvel Comics and people would think that it belonged to them and they didn't want any legal trouble. So they started calling the comic book Shazam. And then Marvel created a character called Captain Marvel to further cement their ownership of the name. And so from that point on until now, it's just been called the comic book Shazam. And when they decided to go into the new 52, which is they rebooted the DC universe, and with the movie coming out, with Captain Marvel from Marvel already coming out, they decided to officially and fully just change the character's name to Shazam. And so that's it. The end.
Whoa.
So you just blew my mind.
There you go.
Wait.
There's some information.
So when that was happening, I'm guessing the reason why they were called Marvel, it was to ride kind of that popularity that Captain Marvel had, like Marvel Comics or whatever.
Marvel Comics. I think they just liked it. I mean, Marvel's just a Marvelous. They just took the name. And because they knew that Captain Marvel was a character, they knew that if they made their own Captain Marvel then they wouldn't have to fight that. And that's just a good name. Captain Marvel. There's a Marvel Comics, Captain Marvel. So they were like, okay, cool, easy. And then DC was like, oh, well, in the comics, he was still called Captain Marvel, but the title of the comic was Shazam, because you could still call a character Captain Marvel because Marvel is just a name, and they already had claim to that name for forever ago, but they couldn't title the comic Captain Marvel anymore because Marvel owned the title name.
That's wild. That's super shady.
It's got learned.
Yeah, it's super shady to DC.
Yeah, comic book business was there was 18 people in the comics industry back in the day, and they all fought each other and had golf together and ate lunch together and battled each other on the stands all the time. So it was like a big internal, everybody taking somebody else's idea and running with it kind of thing.
Oh.
Love that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Who knew? All right. Well, okay.
Big nerd.
Well, all right. Well, now I have to ask you, since we're going down this rabbit hole, what did you think about the Shazam movie?
I loved it.
Did you?
I was actually very surprised how good it was compared to how some of the other DC movies had gone. I was very surprised with how good it was.
Yeah.
I will say I'm not a huge fan of the Billy Batson version that they went with. They went with the new 52 version where he was like, I'm a juvenile delinquent and I just wish someone would love me, but that's why I'm acting out. Boo.
Nice.
And I understand that it's like being in the system, it affects people in some type of way. I understand that could surely be someone's story. And I like the overall telling of hey, being good is about the choices you make to be good, and and family can look like anything. All of that stuff is great. I like all of that stuff. But what I don't like is Billy Batson being a little dick. I like my Billy Batson being nice. I like him being a genuinely nice kid who is optimistic about the world in front of him. I like being able to paint people in the system, not just in this they're all juvenile delinquent brush, but actually this kid is a good kid and he wants to do well and the world is tough, but he is happy to help. And then he reflects all of the values that superheroes stand for because he's a child and he doesn't understand enough to be cynical yet. I like that concept as a hero. And so I was sad that they didn't go with that. I understand a angsty tween sells more tickets or whatever, but that's just my personal opinion.
That's so deep. I love that. I love that perspective.
Yeah, that's a good analysis for sure.
Are you excited for the Snyder's Cut?
No. I think that
really?
Justice League was bad. I think Justice League was bad. I think Batman and Superman was the biggest travesty to happen to the world of cinema.
Okay.
And That's it. So that's what I'm not excited for the Snyder's Cut. I hope that
You don't think it'll be
everybody
better?
who likes it. No, it'll be bad. The movie is bad. You can't. If you told me that there was a turd sandwich, but this turd sandwich was cut into triangles instead of squares, I'm not gonna be like, oh, sign me up for that turd. Yum yum yum. No, it's a bad movie. It's bad. The whole thing was bad. Stop trying to pretend like it was good.
Wow.
The end.
That's perfect. The end.
The end. Full
Nothing
stop.
else you can say.
The end.
Anyway, guys, thanks.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. So obviously you have a lot of passions and a lot of things that you're super interested in. And I love that bleeds through into your music, and you're like unabashed about that. You're unabashedly you. And I like that.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was pretty apparent in the album Trapped in My Room.
Yes.
That one was during quarantine, right? That you wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my projection.
Hit me.
That you were, okay, bear with me, trapped in your room. And, and you were just like kind of reminiscing and looking around and experiencing things. And you're like, I could turn that sound into a song. I could also turn that sound into a song. And also this reference and this and this and this. And then it all coagulates into this full album of just like pure nostalgia sounds. So can you just like give me a rundown of what your headspace was like when you were writing all of that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, you got it. You got it nail on the head. That's basically what had happened. Because, I'm a full-time musician, and I lost all my shows in like the matter of like a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to make ends meet and live my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was sitting in my room, just sitting around after like a couple like days, we're like on week 2 of just like sitting around. I'm sitting here going like, I need to write something or I'm going to go crazy. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, Matt, we're going to go back to the old school. I can't get to the studio anymore. I can't do all that stuff. So we're going to take your roommate's laptop. We're going to get your old broken mic. We're going to get on GarageBand, because I did that whole thing on GarageBand.
No way.
I did that whole thing on GarageBand.
Wow.
Nice.
And I'm going to go back to how I started things, which is just like writing songs about whatever. And so I turned on the TV, I'm like Spider-Man stuff, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, like freaking Dora the Explorer, like just like
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob. Like indoors SpongeBob the entire time. Exactly. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna like do that. Mm-hmm. And it, like my PlayStation turning on, like the old style of stuff. It's just like whatever I could find to make music out of. And even one of those TikTok sounds, you know what I mean? Like I just did whatever I could to really make a whole piece, a work of art, to remind myself that I didn't need all the bells and whistles that came with being a professional musician or a full-time musician. I don't need all the extra bits. All I need is the desire to make art and things to inspire me. And if I have those two things, I can make a whole project and it can sound great. It just requires me to work at it. And it kept me sane throughout that time to keep working on it, waking up, having something to do, waking up, having something to strive for. And it was a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite things. Honestly, I think Near You from that particular project from Trapped in My Room is one of my favorite songs I've ever written.
Wow.
Like it's just
a good song.
So the time, it fully captures how I was feeling in that moment. It was great.
Yeah. So me and Jimmy were talking about this a little bit before we started, but I proposed that you were like, I think it's important for an artist to be affected by their environment in some way and let that bleed through their art, because that's what makes something relatable.
Yeah.
And that album was very relatable, because no one is not going through COVID times. It's literally everybody.
Every single person. Mhm.
And so I thought
Except for the people on the space station. I'm sure it's just the same for them.
That's true. They're just floating around. Don't
Totally
even know
think
what's going
about
on.
that. Yeah.
If anything, they just get to talk to their family more because they're in the house.
That's true.
Bastards.
Those jerks living in space.
Yeah.
The bourgeoisie in space.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
So
Anyway.
my question to you is, do you think it's important to be kind of like hyper affected by your environment, or do you think that it could go too far?
I think it depends. If you're taking the steps to stay healthy mentally and emotionally, it's okay to let things in. I tell people all the time, like, yo, if you're an artist, you really should be going to therapy. You really should be getting some, not just when things are bad, but just in general, because it's your job to get deep inside yourself and feel things at a level and then share it with people. That's your job. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you were an athlete, you get your body checked up. You go and you do stuff, not just when it's feeling bad, but you do conditioning all the time. So, because you know you're going to have to use your body in a big way. If you're an artist and you use art or music to express yourself, you should be getting therapy and making sure that your head's on right, because you're going to explore some really deep and really sad, sometimes really powerful emotions through yourself. And you need to be ready for that. This particular year, or last particular year, I should say, in 2020, a lot of people were left alone with themselves. And I think that is a really dangerous place to be if you haven't taken a lot of that work. And letting something as bleak as 2020 feed into your brain constantly, it might not be great for everybody. Not everybody put out music in 2020, and that's totally fine, because just freaking living through that is hard enough, let alone trying to create and delve inside yourself for meaning and for emotion. So, like, I think that an artist can do that and should do that. Artists should reflect the times in which they're living in. Yeah. They should just be able to do so safely so that they don't burn out or end up like Kanye West, just complete insanity.
He's whacked
He
out
had
right
Kim. He had Kim.
He did.
And he lost her.
I don't even think he understands where he's at right now. I feel for the man. So it's like, that's what happens when you allow the world to just, like, you allow it to all hyper affect you so much and you're not taking the time.
That's a really good differentiation.
It is.
I like how you said all artists should go to therapy, and it's, everybody was alone during 2020. So we talk about this guy, this artist, his name is Beeple Crap. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's been making these daily 3D art for 13 years. He just passed his 5,000th day of making art daily.
Wow.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. He sold 0.4% of his portfolio and made $3.5 million recently. So, crazy guy. And he said, I want to know your thoughts on what you think about this one piece he made. He posted a lot of just crap. He says the main gist of it is, alone does not equal lonely.
That's very true. Alone and lonely are two different things. They just kind of sound the same, like Hot Wheels car and Ford motor car. But they both have they're similar, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they both have wheels and they both have a frame, but one is going to get you someplace and one is going to not. Alone and lonely are not the same thing. You can be alone and not lonely. You could be you can be surrounded by people and be alone, or be lonely. You can be surrounded by everybody you know and love who love you, and you love them, and you could still be lonely. And that requires knowing yourself and taking the time to really get into your own mental well-being. You can be alone and be perfectly fine. A lot of people are recharged by being by themselves. Like, my best friend is an introvert, a crazy introvert. I have to drag them out to do things. But they get recharged by being alone. Like, that's what they like. So it's not the same thing, but it might sound the same to somebody who doesn't understand it.
I think you articulated that beautifully.
You did. I don't know why I'm surprised that you come up with these similes on the spot whenever you're literally a songwriter, a rapper. I don't know why that surprised me. By the way, quick question: Do you freestyle ever?
I don't. I do. I'm not very good at it.
Okay.
Like I tell people all the time, it's like freestyling is a skill.
Oh, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you could be a basketball player and not be good at 3-pointers, but you could still be a pretty decent basketball player.
Sure.
So that's like it's just not a tool in my arsenal that I use very well. I've done it from time to time, but I usually end up looking silly.
I feel that. It is it's very like different. It's so like it kind of blows my mind when I see someone actually do a freestyle. And when I say freestyle, I mean like straight like off the dome, thinking of it right then, not anything pre-planned. It blows my mind, honestly. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. Like, Juice World. I don't know if you were a fan of him.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you ever saw his freestyle. He freestyled on what was that YouTube show? I forgot. It was some YouTube show for an hour straight.
that's crazy.
What? An hour?
And I'm not kidding.
He talked
60
for
minutes.
1 hour.
Freestyle
For 1
over
hour.
different
He
beats.
used
They
his
would
voice for 1 hour.
1 hour.
Whoa.
He
That's
did not
crazy.
stop.
That's so talented.
It's on YouTube. You should look it up. Like it's
We'll link it in the
inspiring.
show notes.
No, it's crazy. It's fascinating. But yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that's so amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He was definitely a special talent. It was sad to
For sure.
too young. Rest in peace, Juice World.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So introspection last year, 2020 was crazy. I'm of the camp that out of COVID and all the litany of things that are happening in the world right now, that there's going to be like a pretty huge, significant historical art movement that's going on right now. Like you put out 3 albums last year, right?
I did. Yep.
Okay. So
3 albums.
That's crazy. Eminem put out 2 albums last year. Taylor Swift put out 2 huge albums last year. Like people were going to work. And these are the people that are like looking inside themselves because they have literally no other choice. And like you said, it's their job and it's your job to take advantage of this time, look inside yourself and put something out for other people.
Exactly.
So how do you think that COVID and just everything are going to affect the art scene right now, like in all creative fields?
I mean, I feel like, there's not like a global equivalent that we know of other than maybe Ring Around the Rosie. Like the idea that there's a song that's made that everybody knows what it's about. And when they made it, everyone's like, oh yeah, that thing that happened. You know, like we're living in a world where a global pandemic happened and we have the internet. You know, like so like there's going to be 50 years from now, there's going to be songs from this time and everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, that's about the global pandemic. There's a whole 4 or 5 years of songs that'll just be mentioning this thing that future generations won't even know what we're talking about. They'll read about it, but they'll be like, oh yeah, like the Dust Bowl and the coronavirus. Like, yeah,
Dude.
you know, like,
yeah.
It's actually crazy to think about it like that, like the way that we just kind of gloss over topics in history books. It's like you said, oh yeah, then the Depression happened for 10 years and then it was World War II and now we're in the 50s. Yay. And now we're in the Cold War. And like, you just like go through these things. It's like, you don't understand that how time passes. Honestly, like it's hard to put yourself in someone's shoes who lived through that. And thinking of it right now, it's like, oh my gosh, my kids are going to want to ask me all the questions about this and how did you survive and blah, this and blah.
Yeah.
Blah. And they're honestly not going to give 2 shits about this, honestly.
No, they won't. No. I look at my nieces. My brother had twins just at the beginning of 2020.
Wow.
Like,
man.
And I look at them, I hold them in my hands, you know, and I'm like, you are the future. Like literally, you are going to outlive me. If everything works out exactly the way we wanted to, I'm going to be dead for a longer time than I'm going to spend with you.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be super in the future. Like when I say, oh, it's, 2107, like that's realistic for you. It's not realistic for me, but that's like a realistic time frame for you. You might see that. Like, so it's wild to think that while the biggest thing that's ever happened in my life is happening right now, you don't even understand what colors are. Like there's so much left of life. The art that's being made now is going to be a part of history, but unlike Ring Around the Rosie, which took a very long time to get to everywhere, you know what I mean? We're all going to hear everybody. You'll be able to hear, you're going to hear music from Somalia that talks about the coronavirus. You're going to hear music from China that talks about the coronavirus, the music from Australia that's going to talk about the coronavirus, and then music from Minnesota that talks about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And we're all going to talk about the same thing that happened around the same time. And we were all sat in our house for the same thing. And so we're going to hear everyone feeling this same emotion, which I'm really interested to see kind of how that works.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just amazing to be a part of.
It is. It's something just like a fun fact. It's not necessarily a fun fact, but something that just kind of blew my mind when I heard it. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the same year.
What? Really?
Yeah. Can you
I separate them
exactly, and that's how we think about world events.
Different.
Yeah, it's like these things were not happening at the same time, like Bible times and like ancient Egypt, like those were happening at the same time, and we don't think about that. It's like, wow, Anne Frank.
Well, history doesn't teach us that.
Jr. Yeah, no, you're right.
They put him in different categories. Martin Luther King didn't do anything until 1950 something. In people's heads, like, oh, he didn't do anything until this time. It's like, well, no, he lived a whole life.
Yeah,
he lived a whole life. George Washington Carver only invented peanut butter, and then he went to bed. people forget all the things, all the life you have to live to get to the thing that you did. Like, you're living in your entire life, and then you might do the thing that you did, and then you have a lot of life after that, hopefully, unless you end up like Martin Luther King and become a martyr for the thing that you did. Like, so it's like we're living in a very important part of history right now, not just like us as Americans. And yeah, like America is kind of like the focal point of a lot of people's attention. But that might not even be the case by the time that we're our parents' age.
Yeah.
Like, we are living in a new precedent world where the internet is its own nation and we're residing in and out of it. Like, we might not even see ourselves as, because people talk about like, oh, well, you know, whatever, America, whatever. As long as I have the internet access and ability to go where I could be from anywhere, I could do anything. So we're living in a strange time, and music's only going to reflect that more and more.
That is so true. That's it's just such a fascinating thing to talk about. And just like to switch gears a little bit, obviously last year, more than just the coronavirus happened. And I know that something you were supremely affected by, at least from what I can see, was the death of George Floyd. And so I want to talk a little bit about your legacy, because that's what we were talking about, you know, just a second ago, about like what people are going to be remembered for. So it seems like, at least from your last two albums, the tone is kind of changed and your message has changed a little bit. So can you speak a little bit into that in your own words?
I think so. When George Floyd was murdered by the Minneapolis Police Department, it was a wake-up call for a lot of people that injustice still needed to be done because of the coronavirus, because everything bleeds into everything. Because of the coronavirus, people had a lot less distractions. And I think the powers that be that like to keep people separated and like to keep people marginalized keep us all in a certain level of busy so that we only have but so much emotional energy to deal with things as they come up. I know a lot of good people that haven't ever thought to fight against racial injustice just because they're A, white, and B, they work an 8-hour job and come home and have 2 kids. They have like 15 minutes to spend with each other. They watch reruns of Bones. Like, they're too busy in their head to do the thing. That's why we treat people who fight those fights as so miraculous, because like, oh, wow, look at they're doing all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. When you take away all the distraction, you take away theater, you take away sports, you take away movies, and all people have to do is care about other people all of a sudden, then you see how quick like these things catch fire. So when George Floyd was murdered, people saw that and had nothing else to run to distract themselves, whether subconsciously or purposefully. And you saw battle lines be drawn, like, hey, you know what? No more. And I was in that camp. I was part of that people. It happened just down the way from me. So being able to go and lend my voice to that was great. But then when the reaction from the police department was violent, that first day was pretty when people came into peaceful protest and the cops decided to gas people and shoot at them, it became, people aren't safe. People aren't safe to be able to say the things they want to say, to express their First Amendment right, to basically just say, hey, this is wrong and we're hurting right now. So I took it upon myself to do something about that. I started helping with first aid and, walking around a burning Target parking lot with tape and Band-Aids and trying to help people as we could. And as we did that, I found a group of like-minded friends that came together and we became a group, Justice Frontline Aid. And it was amazing. They're the people that run Justice Frontline Aid now, the people like our president and all the stuff like that. After I founded that thing, the help that we've been able to provide our community is so amazing and so constant and so beautiful to see. And I wanted that to be reflected in my artwork. I'll never forget. I was at a first aid station. It was May 29th. We had been heard all day that the National Guard was coming and that the police were using live rounds. Like they weren't playing around anymore. Like they were going to shoot you and then you were going to die if they shot you. And I remember I was standing outside of a first aid station. The police come. They don't tell us to disperse. They just start firing. And I remember me and some of the nurses and other members that were there helping, other medics and stuff that were helping, we were raising our hands and we were like, hey, we have injured people back here. People that can't get up and run, people that can't move, they're hurt, they can't leave. Please stop shooting at them. They can't do anything. Like they're not doing anything. They're literally just laying down, being in pain. Can you please we'll get arrested. We'll happily get arrested. Just stop shooting at these people. And I remember getting shot in my hip with what was a rubber bullet. But when I got hit, I didn't know that. Yeah. And I said to myself, when that pain hit me, I remember thinking to myself, oh, so I'm just dead.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm dying. So this is how I die. I died in the street. And I said to myself, after I realized I wasn't, we got out of there, we got the people out of there. I said, have I said everything I wanted to say? Wow. If that was the end of me, did I say everything that I wanted to say?
Oh my gosh.
And I realized I didn't. And I never not said things that I wanted to say, but Nur-D was about something different. But this is a big part of me. If I was willing to die for it, it certainly should be something I was willing to sing about. So I set to work doing that. And that's where 38th and Chicago Avenue came from. 38th being more of the anger, the anguish, the pain, the desire for retribution, the desire for radical change. And then Chicago Avenue being more of uplifting, more not even reconciliation, but more of a pro-black excellence, loving yourself, and the desire for justice and the ideals in which we are fighting for. Yeah. And that's been those last two albums, and that's where I've kind of been for the end of the year. Yeah. Which has been very beautiful for me. But it was a lot emotionally. It was a lot of stuff.
Dude, that's powerful. Like what you said, have I said everything that I want to say? If I'm here doing something that I'm willing to give up my life for, am I reflecting that in my other areas of life too? I think that's an important question to ask yourself, not only just as an artist, but just as a human being. And something that I really appreciate about you, Matt, is that you're not just talking the talk. You were actually out there really just trying to help people. You weren't out there just for the hell of it. You were there to help people and you were there to make a change. And I think that's very admirable. And then also in your music, yeah, of course, also in your music, at the final track in 38 was Goodbye, right? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like a pruning of Nur-D's. Again, this is just me projecting. I don't know if any of this is true.
But yeah, no, hit me.
It was like a pruning of Nur-D's audience. And if you don't want to listen to my music anymore, I understand. But this is me, and it's always been me. But I'm just being more forthcoming about it. I'm being more true to myself. Yes. And at the end of that song, you were like, go forth and be good and kind and stuff like that, whatever exactly it was you said. And then at the end of Chicago Avenue, it was hello, like hello to the people who have just discovered me. You may have never heard me before, but this is who I am now. And then at the very end, you said, go forth and be kind. So you're treating everyone with the same respect as people should be treated. And I thought that was very powerful. And that's what an artist should do. So that was a long-winded way of saying I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, both of those it's really funny because I didn't write those. It was just I stepped up to the mic and I said
really?
Oh. Yeah, no, it was just talking because I knew that there was going to be I was making a very distinct choice with the art, and that people weren't going to be 100% with that, but I needed to be okay with that. And so it was a message to them. It was a message to me, a self-boldening of the decision I've made, and saying goodbye to some fans. And I have said goodbye to some fans. Some fans have not decided to not stay with me on that, but I have gained a lot of new ones. And it's been a beautiful story to see these people coming through and be like, hey, I didn't know that you were about all this and I really appreciate it. Or I never thought about it this way, and now I am thinking about it this way. And I mean, and we're still, the beautiful thing about diversity is that it makes us all better because we learn a little bit more, just like we talked about earlier in the whole chat about diversifying your genre of music and how that makes you a better musician. The diversity in your life in general, whether it be people the lifestyles that they live, the way that they live, who they are, their race, their creed, their religion, their all of that. Diversifying who you know and who you allow to speak into you will make you a better person. Absolutely. And so it's really exciting to just be a part of that and have that reflected in my music.
Good on you. Honestly.
Yeah.
Good on you.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you brought it full circle.
That's what I try to do, baby. We got to get the whole thing.
That's right.
Got to get the whole thing. It is all encompassing infinity train.
That's right. That is right. Yeah. I mean, you're a joy to talk to, by the way. So
hey, thank you
again. Thank you for being on here. We have a reoccurring segment. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That was a long one.
Yeah. So we have a recurring segment on this podcast called Explain That Tweet. However, you're actually the first. I'm changing it though, so don't get too excited.
Oh no.
You are the first musician that we've had on our podcast.
True that. Yep.
So yeah, that's probably the highest honor you have ever gotten.
I feel it is. I've never gotten a better honor than that.
That's what I thought. So I'm changing it to for this episode. Explain that lyric. So I have chosen a lyric from a song. The song specifically is "The Man" from Songs About Stuff. I like that song a lot.
Thank you.
And that lyric is because I'm still right here, like I said on my track. Took a few mics till I gave them back. Now I'm taking my seat, making my throne on this beat. Now they on my phone. What does that mean? Explain it.
Okay, so man, I love that track. So so I'm Still Right Here is actually a song from Still Here, yeah. A song from my mixtape 2 Electric Boogaloo. So I'm Still Right Here, like I said on my track. Took a few mics, never gave them back, which is from that song. Yeah. Actually, no, Still Right Here, like I said in my track, took a few mics, never gave them back. It's from a song from my insert catchphrase here, not cool. Or I say I borrow a couple of microphones, still they never gave them back. So it says took a few mics, never gave them back.
Nice.
Taking my seat, as in like I'm sitting down, make it my throne. So I'm sitting down in my area, making my throne. Like I've made it my throne. I don't have to have it thrown in order to make one. Like I'm on this beat, now they on my phone being like, I'm on this song. I'm doing well on this song. And now they're calling me because they want me to be a part of whatever they want me to be a part of. And that's that line. That's Explain That lyric. That's the entirety of that particular line.
I have one thing to say.
I like that.
Bars.
I like to do Easter eggs in my music. So
Yes.
if you're a Nur-D fan, you'll hear stuff throughout. You're like, oh yeah, that's the thing.
Call
Or,
back.
That's from that, and that's from that. Like I like that. That's the kind of media I like to consume. So that's what I like to make in my music.
I love that.
That's spicy.
That's so spicy. All right, great. Well,
Thank you for being on the
Yes.
show.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
of course, dude. Of course. And of course the catchphrase on here.
Yeah, we're not networking. We're making friends.
We're making friends. So
Ooh, I like it.
thank you for having us make another friend today. And we really
yes.
appreciate your time. And that is it.
Hey, thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed Matt. He's a pretty cool dude. Super stoked we got to talk to him. If you missed where to find him, I don't think he even said where to find him. So we're gonna shout him out in the show notes. So he's on Instagram and Twitter with Nur-D Rocks. That's NURDROCKS. Check him out. He's on Twitter. He's on TikTok by the same username. And definitely listen to his music. It's pretty sick. So hope you have just an absolutely stellar day, and we'll catch you next week.